New episode Friday on Fox Nation.
What else is in you?
Bye.
Seven members of a transgender vegan cult were arrested and linked to 6 deaths across 3 states, including the death of a U.S. Border Patrol agent killed in Vermont last month. The group, known as the Zizians, consisted of about 12 people, many working in the tech sector in San Francisco. They reportedly felt modern society was irrevocably broken, leading them to embrace a radical vegan lifestyle. The leader, known as Ziz, even referred to non-vegans as flesh-eating monsters. And back in 2022, he attempted to fake his own death. Joining me now is a former cult member who left his group and now is the host of the Art of Being Dar podcast, Dar Dixon, along with retired FBI agent Scott Duffey. Scott, I'd love to start with you on this. I feel like if we were living were I paying attention to the news cycle and alive in the 1970s, we would have wanted to talk about Charles Manson and his cult in real time. We would have wanted to analyze Jim Jones and the Jonestown Massacre in real time. Here we have a cult linked to 6 homicides across the country, and it's unfolding for us in real time.
Yeah, especially since the tragic death of the Border Patrol agent regarding that car stop in Vermont. That's when I really started to hear about this. But even then, it's like, okay, what was a Border Patrol agent doing with regards to stopping these individuals? And then it was like, okay, it's tragic, it's horrible, but is this a one and done type situation? And then with regards to the news of who and how they're tied together, and then the different backgrounds, cultural backgrounds, whether it be they're vegan or transgender, it just started to really take a life of its own, crossing from the east to the west.
I want to give the audience some of those details on what they believed and how they arrived at gender fluidity or transgender and vegan ideology. But Dar, I want to bring you in because you were a member of a cult and you escaped. Tell us, what cult was that? Quickly, please, what brought you in and what got you out?
Ooh, that's a big story. The cult was an alien cult. Vanity Fair did a big piece on it. Marie Brenner did a piece on it back in 1990. They called it East Side Alien, but it was basically a pseudo-religious doomsday cult. The thing that got me out actually was an entanglement with law enforcement, which got escalated quickly, and we ended up getting drawn into these far-right militia groups, which have now turned into these modern-day people in our government today, unfortunately. And that was the kind of the light that came on for me that made me realize it's time to get out of Dodge.
Okay. Thank you for that abridged version. I know that's a big story, but I think there's overlap because what I notice about all these members of the Ziz cult, the Zizians, is one was making $500,000 a year on Wall Street. Another worked in the tech sector and had received an award from Google. Another was at Rice University. We're talking about highly educated and sometimes highly professional people that fell into this cult.
Yeah. The cult that I was a part of was filled with Ivy League scholars. So it's not dumb people that get involved in cults. People like to say that it's idiots. If you listen to people talk, yeah, a lot of the stuff they say is not very intelligent, but that's because they're sticking to the script of the party line, so to speak. And so rational thought, critical thought gets shut down. And that's one of the things that happens. Well, I'm not surprised that these were very important.
And that's pretty fascinating that you say rational thought gets shut down. I'll go back to you, Scott. They were self-described rationalists. They wanted to look for a world with logical explanations, but at some point they developed this belief, according to reports, that the human being was split in two. That they even did sleep deprivation to the cult members where they thought one half could sleep, meaning half of your mind could sleep and the other half would remain awake. And they also believed, by that same extension, that you could switch genders, that you could become one or the other gender because you weren't a whole person. It's a lot here, and it's wrapped up in a lot of stuff that's going on in broader society, Scott.
Yeah, having worked gangs and violent crews in my time in the FBI, you target these individuals because of the violent crimes and the criminal acts that they're committing. We're not interested in any type of groups for whatever their backgrounds are, whatever their beliefs are, whatever they pursue, as long as they are not criminal. But this is mind-blowing in the sense that they are very elite, and as they practice that elitism, that their intellect and so forth, that here they are undoing themselves in the sense of killing people who are close to them or alleged to be killing people close to them, and really brought law enforcement attention to them quickly, especially with the tragic killing of the Border Patrol agent.
Where you look at it from a criminal perspective and work from that premise, there's a broader responsibility for the rest of us to walk down the path of what brings people into something like this, divorcing themselves from reality. And when you've arrived at the point thinking that you can switch your gender, eat only vegan foods, and take directives from your godlike figure named Zizian, then you have arrived at the place where criminality is possible. But there was a long road that got them there, a road that I assume you traveled to some extent, Dar.
Absolutely, I did. You know, it's not really helpful for your viewers to kind of frame this in a radical vegan, I forget the other word, the trans thing. Those are things that are salacious and really easy to kind of hook onto. The broadest overview I can say is that the reason people get involved in cults is because there's an emotional vacuum, an emotional void within them. And that's how the cult kind of hooks them in psychologically. And once that happens, and once those needs begin to get met, you start to have a suppression of your feelings and your emotions, which is interesting because Ziz, the leader of the group, met a lot of these people at the Rationalist Society in the Bay Area. And really what that is a suppression of your emotional states of mind. And if you can't think for yourself, you can't express yourself, you can't share your feelings and thoughts on things, you are in a bad, bad place. In which that place actually led to being investigated by Scott at some point.
Right. That's a really interesting explanation, and my suspicion is you're right, Dar, on the basic human need that allows someone to end up in a place where they follow someone else blindly from a cult perspective. But it doesn't escape my attention that many of the cults of the 70s, for example, the Manson cult, was tied in some ways to the hippie movement. You, or the Heaven's Gate cult of the 90s, tied up in extraterrestrial or alien focus. And then now we're talking about something that's tied to some extent to the trends of today, vegan or transgender. That's not to indict those entire communities, obviously, but the cult preys on what also is a trend in the broader culture.
I don't think they were preying on that at all, actually. That just happened to be a byproduct. Look, the trans people that I have in my family and in my life are some of the bravest people I've ever met in my life, bar none. It's an extremely challenging position to be in a society where that is not the quote-unquote norm. We were vegetarian back in the days, and then we became vegan. So does that make me a radical? No, it's a form of behavior, emotion, thought, and information.
I appreciate that. I've got 15 seconds left in the program, and this is not to indict any one community at large, but I do think there's deeper analysis about what is motivating all of these people, not just salaciousness. All right, thanks for joining us here. I appreciate Dar and Scott as well, and I appreciate you, the 5, next.